It's interesting to hear the way some people talk about Ohio State. And honestly, this might be the formula that finally wins you a national title. If you're brand new here, welcome on into the channel. My name is Thompson. I'm a radio show host based in Houston, and I talk college football. I talk NFL, MLB, NHL, NBA, but I love talking college football. If this type of content you enjoy, that's the channel made for you. So hit the subscribe button down below, give a thumbs up on the video, leave a comment on what your thoughts are on Ohio State in 2023. Tell your friends, your family, your pastor, your sister, your brother, the drunk guy passed out in a Waffle House or Publix parking lot on Saturday game days about the channel. Because if we get to 1,000 subscribers by November 15th, I'll shave my head live on air. We do 3 live shows a week, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and let's talk college football. Ohio State, they're currently the number 3 team in the AP poll. I believe tonight they will be number 1 in the college football playoff ranking. And for good reason. Probably the main one is they have the most ranked wins against top 10 opponents, but that's neither here nor there. The thing with Ohio State is everyone seems to have an opinion on the Buckeyes. And the biggest people who have probably the most vocal opinion are the fans. And the fans are a lot like Alabama fans. And I can tell you this because I am an Alabama grad and I am an Alabama fan. And I've watched Alabama play football for decades. Alabama fans are never satisfied. They never are. You can have a great win, a culture win, a dominant fashion victory, and they'll still find something to complain about. And it's because of the standard that's been set, not just by Nick Saban, but by those ahead. Bear Bryant, Gene Stallings, countless other coaches who have come through, and those who have actually had 8-win seasons, and that's not good enough. That's what's in Tuscaloosa every single season. And it's kind of the same thing set in Columbus, Ohio, where you expect certain things to happen and you expect this to be the norm. College football playoff, national championship appearance, countless titles being hoisted up, and you haven't won one since 2014. But isn't it interesting that this is the year where things are looking really strong for Ohio State in differing fashion? For starters, offense has been the driving force in Columbus, and for good reason. Look at the quarterbacks that have come through, from Dwayne Haskins to Justin Fields to CJ Stroud, and their appearances in the college football playoff and their dominance in the Big Ten. All that's fine and dandy. But now your defense is kind of telling the story. And your defense actually deserves a lot more praise than what we're giving it. Do you know who's number 2 in the country when it comes to scoring? Ohio State. Do you know what Ohio State did to a Penn State offense that was averaging over 35 points per game? Held them to 12. Basically kept them out of the end zone until literally the final minute. And at that point, the game was so far out of reach, there was nothing to be concerned about. So this is a team that mitigated mistakes and has gotten better every single step along the way. And the results speak for themselves. When you look at Ohio State this year, they have dominated underneath Jim Knowles, which was the entire point of bringing him in. He was very comfortable in Stillwater, Oklahoma, and Stillwater was a fine job for him. Mike Gundy loved him. And that year that they nearly went to the college football playoff, it wasn't because Spencer Sanders was slinging it 50 yards down the field to elite receivers. And it wasn't because they had an elite run game. It was because their defense was so damn good, opponents couldn't score on them. And therein led to a culture and an identity that maybe the Pokes were actually potent enough to go ahead and hoist up a national title. And Jim Knowles was hired for that reason. And last year, it was an average defense. They were, I think, 32nd in the country in scoring. Well, you flip it now. Now the offense ranks 32nd in scoring. They're still averaging roughly around 28, 29 points per game. But the defense is currently number 2, only behind Michigan, and they're holding opponents to 10 points a game. Not only that, they rank inside the top 5 in total yards allowed. They're holding opponents to 260 yards per game. The run defense has been better, but still not at an elite standard. But the pass defense has been great. They're number 4 in the country. Only Michigan, Rutgers, and Notre Dame have allowed fewer yards per game. And then you have, of course, Penn State, which outside of that one game against Ohio State, where Marvin Harrison Jr. decided to go ham. They've done their job. But that's not really what I'm talking about. Defensively, you always want to be ahead. The one thing that I remember when I was playing back in high school and when I was, still very much into the film study, you want your defense ahead of the curve from the jump. And every single time you talk to a coach, whether it be at the NFL level or the college level, they want their defense to be probably 3 steps further along than the offense week 1. Because if the offense eventually is going to pick up the pace, the offense eventually is going to click, and they're going to hit their stride at the right time. Georgia is a perfect example of this right now. Georgia just put 43 points up against their rival in Florida, and they did it without Brock Bowers. And so now you're seeing how Ladd McConkey and Dominic Lovett and Dylan Bell and the run game is all effective. Well, imagine what happens when Brock Bowers comes back. Imagine what Carson Beck is going to have as his field day when his arsenal is elite at this standard. Imagine that. That's horrifying. That's absolutely horrifying if you are a Georgia opponent, whether that be Missouri this week or Ole Miss, or you have Georgia Tech at the end of the year, or whoever you play in the SEC championship, Tennessee, all those games. That's a scary thought. The same thing could be thought about with Ohio State. You realize that Travion Henderson had not been playing the last several weeks. He had not been affected since week 4's win over Notre Dame. And he had a big 61-yard run. That was huge, and that ended up being a massive difference maker in the game. You also don't have Emeka Egbuka at full speed right now. And that is a surefire third down machine that you just want to pick up the sticks and keep drives alive. And you still have one of the better tight ends in college football in Cade Stover. You still have arguably the human highlight reel and probably the best player in the sport in Marvin Harrison Jr., who is a generational talent, which is why I hate the word generational when we just throw it around willy-nilly, because that's a guy that's earned the right to say generational at wide receiver. And Kyle McCord is still making some mistakes, but he's learned to mitigate the few flaws and turn those into points instead of punts. And the defense hasn't lost a beat. Your offense has always been good. And your offense has always been able to carry the load and win in shootout fashion and dominant form to where you look like one of the best teams in college football. But because your defense hasn't played up to a certain standard, and yeah, you've had great players. I mean, you look at superstars that are in the NFL like Denzel Ward or Malik Hooker, or even guys that didn't pan out like Darren Lee. The way that they've been able to build this roster has been good, but they've never been a cohesive defense. They've always been stalwart players, not standout units. Now you have that. And so now the unit that is hitting its stride and has for the entire season is only getting better alongside a now promising offense that probably is going to make enough noise for you to be undefeated when you take on Michigan in the Big House in late November. And if you win that game, you're probably in the playoff, because I don't think you're losing to Nebraska or Iowa or whoever the hell is the team that represents the Big Ten West. Nobody is going to lose that game, whether it be Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State. You're winning, and then you're in the playoff. But wouldn't you rather have a defense that's able to hold opponents out of the end zone, force a lot of 3-and-outs, corral the quarterback into making mistakes or be sacked for a loss of a down and yards, than have an offense that just can put up 50 points and then you have to win in shootout fashion? You realize that last year, if you had this defense against Georgia, you probably have won a national title. If you had this defense against Michigan, you probably are undefeated, or you probably are going into the college football. Yeah, you're undefeated. You're going into the college football playoff with the Big Ten title. And you probably are a team that nobody wants to play. I would much rather be happy and elated that my offense is playing like dog crap half the time and that it stalls and that it's nowhere near at full capacity. But I have a defense that is going to make sure I win every football game than vice versa. Because it's a lot easier to fix the offensive mistakes by adding back in Emeka Egbuka, by having a healthy Travion Henderson, by having a quarterback like Kyle McCord make one error and 3 touchdowns, than have a quarterback that's making mental errors and 3 touchdowns, and that might not be good enough. I'd much rather be where Ohio State is right now than where they were the last 2 years. Because the last 2 years, you've been close to winning a national title. This year, you're not close. You can taste it. And honestly, the way that your defense has been playing, you should be dreaming of national championship aspirations and booking hotels in Houston sooner, a lot rather than later. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching that video. Don't hit the X button yet. Make sure you hit subscribe to keep up with all of our daily content found on Just Saying It and anything else that we post on this channel. Bye.